go.
Just waiting for the slides to come up.
Waiting for the slides to come up.
Item 1, please.
Go ahead and start. and we'll
Yeah, I
catch
don't
up.
think we need a picture of ourselves,
Go ahead.
and nobody is calling in remote. Joe can't make it and everybody else is here.
Good
So-
afternoon. With this first item, staff is recommending approval of awards for electric school buses. This program will be funded through our AB 923 Lower Emission School Bus Program. Back in December, the board approved release of a program announcement for electric school buses. Eligible applicants included public school districts, joint power authorities, as well as charter schools. I'm sorry, thank you. Thank you. At this time, there are currently 2 manufacturers that are making electric school buses that would qualify for this program. I just wanted to highlight that here. The first one is Lion Bus, and the second one is Motive Power Systems. Both have Type C buses that are available for this program. We were oversubscribed for this program. We received applications from 53 school districts requesting 295 electric school buses. So staff has evaluated all of the applications, and we're proposing to provide funding to all applicants located in environmental justice areas. With this program, ARB is allowing fleet expansion, so the school districts do not have to replace and scrap an older school bus. And one kind of key feature of this program is that subsequent to SCAQMD governing board approval, the school districts will be required to apply for HVIP funding to be used as leverage funds with the SCAQMD funds. So the combined SCAQMD funds with the HVIP funds are expected to cover the total base price of an electric school bus, including sales tax, as well as additional funding for charging infrastructure that may be needed for these buses. The agreement with the Air Resources Board was that the funding would provide up to $368,000 per electric school bus. This includes sales tax, and then an additional $20,000 for charging infrastructure that may be needed. If the school district is not successful in receiving the HVIP funds, which is currently set at $120,000 per bus, the schools may choose to receive the SCAQMD funds only, which would be about $248,000 per bus. Again, just to highlight, only schools in disproportionately impacted areas according to the Carl Moyer program were selected. So the way this works out is we're proposing to award funding to 2 charter schools, 16 public schools for a total of 33 electric school buses. And this basically is comprised of about 2 electric school buses per school, except for 3 schools who requested only 1 electric school bus. Just to emphasize the funding per bus, if they're awarded the HVIP funds, they would get up to $120,000 in grant funding through the HVIP program. SCAQMD funding would be set at $248,000 per bus. And then we would be providing an additional $20,000 for any infrastructure. The proposed staff recommendations, the awards are distributed as follows by county, just in case you were curious. The distribution of funding is shown here. So the percentage of funding going towards each county is represented here, as well as the number of electric school buses and the number of schools that would be awarded the funding. The total program cost for the SCAQMD program would be $8.844 million. So with this item, staff is recommending execution of contracts with the qualifying school districts for electric school buses and associated charging infrastructure in an amount not to exceed $8.844 million from the Carl Moyer program.
Okay, any questions from members of the committee?
Yeah, I have a couple. What's the difference in cost between these and the natural gas buses?
The natural gas buses are around $180,000, $170,000 to $180,000. ARB's guidelines put a maximum limit for us to be able to provide up to $165,000. So we would provide 165,000, and an additional 10 to 15,000 would be provided by the schools themselves to cover the entire cost.
For,
For natural gas buses.
Natural gas.
Yes.
do we ever have a problem with schools not following up and applying for the HVIP funds as well? Do we work hand in hand to make sure they do that?
This
or-
is the first time ever we are co-funding together with ARB. There were a lot of differences in the program, so we have worked out as much as we could, and we are working closely with ARB. The difference is that our program was open solicitation for one time and closed. ARB's is first come, first served, and so we have coordinated the timing with their staff that when in May our board approves that, then these awardees will be notified to apply to ARB for HVIP. They get their response pretty fast because it's first come, first served. Then as soon as they get their response, we will execute our contracts with them. So the timing will be basically a flowing, compact time period.
Going back to the price differential on the natural gas versus what we're looking at here. That number you gave for natural gas is significantly less
Yes,
than what we're looking at here.
yes. Now, the difference is that the natural gas technology has been around for a long time. The natural gas technology, in order for us to provide funding, we do require an older school bus to be replaced, to be crushed. This one is a new technology. That's why we are, usually on natural gas buses, we are providing $25, $30 million. This is the first time new technology, so we are providing only about $8 million to have a relatively smaller fleet, so we can follow their performance, get feedback from schools, and then we are also hoping this will generate more brands to be, more manufacturers to be approved by ARB, which will bring the cost down. And as an evidence to that, actually from the day we started, there was only one that was approved by ARB. Now we have two, and we are hearing the third one is coming along. So hopefully this will be an impetus to bring the price down in the future.
Great, thanks.
Any other questions or comments from the committee? Additions from the staff? Public comment on this? Or testimony?
I don't know if there's public comment there or not. It looks like Joe's office.
Is there public comment in Mr. Buscaino's office?
No public comment.
Can't hear you. Looks like no, right?
You said no.
No.
Okay. All right then, this would be an action item.
I'll move staff recommendation.
Moved. Is there a second? Moved and seconded. Any objection to a unanimous vote from the committee on item number 1? All right. Thank you very much. We'll move to item 2. Please proceed.
This is a execute contract to develop high-efficiency, near-zero emission natural gas engines for heavy-duty vehicles. Diesel-powered trucks continuously are the largest source emitters in the basin. One of the ways the district has supported the reduction of emissions has been through funding near-zero emissions natural gas engine projects. We currently are completing projects to CARB certify for production an 8.9 liter and a 12 liter natural gas engine at near zero NOx. These are ideal size engines commonly used in the ports and in-city trucks. Current market demand for natural gas engines has been limited due to the engine not at or near the same power efficiency of the diesel it is intended to replace. By increasing the engine's efficiency, it is our intention to encourage a wider adaptation of natural gas engines to the market. The CEC, SoCalGas, and the district have all expressed interest in funding improved, more powerful natural gas engines closer to diesel efficiency. The CEC released an RFP in 2016 for which they awarded 3 grant opportunities. In March 2017, North American Repower received the largest of the 3 proposals in a grant from the CEC of $900,000. North American Repower's proposal is to acquire a 2016 carb-compliant Detroit diesel 13-liter engine with SCR and run a baseline performance data set. Next, they will convert the diesel engine to high compression, lean burn natural gas through their current modeling to select the best options available in piston bowl design, engine controls of valve and ignition timing and airflow mix. They also have an extensively researched advanced ignition system that was recently developed with Federal Mogul to ignite the lean burn natural gas efficiently, thus saving fuel and with higher cylinder pressures creating a greater power efficiency closer to that of the diesel engine. Once the desired performance is reached, the engine will be tuned with modified aftertreatment to reach near zero NOx through extensive emissions testing. The CEC, North American Repower, have the majority share of funds invested in this project. SoCalGas has $150,000. They're contributing directly to the project to NAR, and the South Coast SCAQMD is requesting $200,000 to help complete the project. Staff recommends execute contract with North American Repower to develop a 13-liter heavy-duty natural gas engine with high efficiency and near zero NOx, in an amount not to exceed $200,000 from the Clean Fuels Fund.
All right, questions or comments from the committee?
Question. Okay, I thought that, there's already such a truck out there. It's the 12.9 liter. Yeah, what's the deal?
So well, as you know, and I think you've heard in the previous committee, it's better to have more than one manufacturer, and so we always strive to have multiple manufacturers, which will help drive the cost down. So the Cummins Westport is the only manufacturer that has an engine that's near certification in the 12.9 liter. This is looking at a different engine base, so it's a Detroit
Yes, Detroit
diesel. So they're taking and modifying an existing diesel engine to be run on natural gas to get the lower emissions. We think it's better to have more competition. That's why we're also looking at even renewable diesel engine at 0.02. So this is just another option to give more options for the truckers, and at 0.02 for deeper penetration. If we have more models, it's going to help us reach our attainment goals.
So what do they do to the diesel engine? Is it?
Well, as Joseph was telling you, so these are old, not old, they're ex-GM guys, they're automotive folks that are working on this. They're going to do some potential combustion modifications to the piston, as you said. They're going to do extensive modeling and essentially look at using their fuel injection system that they've developed to achieve high efficiency, because that's kind of one of the criticisms of the natural gas engine, that doesn't have as much power as the diesel engine. So they're trying to achieve the same power, but also get the lower NOx emissions. So they'll be modifying an existing diesel engine block.
And then running it on CNG.
Yes.
Okay.
So it's more of a repower?
It's not really a repower, but they'll be using, they're not manufacturing the engine like Cummins Westport, where they're just taking the engine offline. And so this is really a development project to get to where we need to be for our commercial products. So this is just the first step in developing an engine.
So you could take existing diesel trucks and rework them with this kind of
There's
technology?
that potential, but it's probably not likely. I think what's more likely is that they'll develop the needed modifications to the engine, and then they will build the engine based on those specifications, rather than taking it, taking every diesel engine and trying to convert it.
Okay.
Other questions from the committee?
Just a
Janice?
comment, in talking to our public works directors and fleet directors, the medium heavy-duty natural gas trucks perform very poorly in our fleet compared to the diesel. They're often in the shop, and we have the additional problem with the range of our county. We don't have the refueling stations out in the Morongo Valley, so we've got to bring those trucks back into San Bernardino. It's still not convenient and workable, and so better options would be great.
So that's existing CNG trucks. Okay.
Other
Okay,
questions?
I'll,
Oh, sorry, go
I'll
ahead.
just move the staff
I have
recommendation.
one question
Oh, yeah.
first, although I have a
Okay,
motion.
yes.
Is there any difference in, that you can tell in terms of the work that they're doing or proposing to do between being able to utilize renewable natural gas and fossil fuel natural gas?
So my understanding is it's entirely fungible, so there is no.
Yeah, I spoke with them on
difference
this
in terms of
pre
renewable.
this meeting, and North American Repower has substantial investments in renewable natural gas. And their thoughts on it were to get the engine developed first, and then go from there and apply the renewable natural gas and other natural gas to their
Because
engine.
mostly you can use
It's
either
about
kind.
tuning
I mean,
mainly.
it's, it's gas and it powers and it makes,
Yes. Mhm.
electricity or other kinds of power. So I just wonder whether sometimes people are looking at a difference in the sort of, methane generated kind of stuff and
Yeah,
what we're getting out of old oil.
I think chemically speaking, there is no difference, like there is with
Yeah.
renewable diesel versus diesel, which actually has a different chemical composition. But in this case, there's the molecule is a molecule.
Molecules
Bizarre.
and molecules. All right, cool. I have a motion. Do I have a second? All right, I'll second. Any,
I just had one more question for you.
Please.
So, like, what's their projected timeline at this point for commercial viability? I know we're at the very early stage here, but do they have any type, because the Cummins one's supposed to be,
Certified this,
yeah,
this
and
quarter.
basically it's the 2018 model, right,
Yes.
that will be,
Right.
out there in the market, so.
This
I mean, that's
contract's
fair.
for development of this engine. So once it's developed, they'll have to work on.
So this is probably a
3 to 5 years.
18-month
Yeah.
contract, 18 to 24 months, and then after that would be a secondary phase.
Yeah.
So that's probably another 2 years, so we think, 4 years from now, we could have a product.
Is there a reason why they're kind of late to market, so to speak? I mean, are we the ones that are pushing this? Are we the impetus here, or are they coming to us?
I think so. I think the Energy Commission and the SCAQMD have been at the tip of the spear, as it were, in terms of developing cleaner technologies. The Energy Commission has offered a funding opportunity to develop more than one manufacturer. You may not recall, but in the early days, before 2010 engines were developed, we did the same exact thing. We funded, it was Mack trucks, it was John Deere and Cummins Westport to develop natural gas engines. We had 3 simultaneous contracts going with the Energy Commission and Department of Energy. So this is a very similar track where we're trying to get the band back together and develop more than one offering so we can have more manufacturers in the game.
Was Cummins the first to market that time around?
It was because it turned out that the Department of Energy cut their funding to the natural gas program, and so those 2 other manufacturers dropped out. So John Deere and Mack didn't offer the product.
Yeah, because I've never even heard of their offerings, so
Yeah, that was-
I assume that to be the case, and I wonder if there's a lessons learned here, as we are the tip of the spear, like you said, that we start from the get-go of trying to push, for multiple manufacturers there, because I have that same concern. I mean, they'll develop something here, but
Yeah.
whether it ever becomes a commercially viable product or
I
not.
think there's probably
We'll see.
lots of lessons, but I think one of which is, as Supervisor Rutherford said, it's got to meet the duty cycle.
Yeah.
It's got to perform as equivalent as diesel, and I guess the second lesson is perseverance.
I add to that is increased efficiency technology hasn't been there. This advanced ignition system they came up with took a grant itself just to come up with that. And no one's been able to get to that point yet. There's been a lot of research and technology being developed, and this is one of the first projects really where we have advanced technology to get more efficiency out of this engine to help alleviate your problem that you mentioned earlier.
Well, and I know it's not necessarily agendized, but you briefly mentioned renewable diesel and, trying to get to this same stage, at least this stage, is as quickly as possible, I think is going to be important for the industry. I know it's not necessarily always the most popular topic, but, it's there's just the vast majority of the trucks out there are diesels. Okay, thanks.
okay, any other comments or questions? I have a motion and a second. Any objection to a unanimous vote from the committee? Seeing none, that is approved. Leading to item number 3. Please go ahead.
All right, good morning, everyone. So today, this item is about executing a contract to educate communities in the use and operation of low-cost air quality sensors. So back in October of 2016, the board basically recognized and appropriated about $750,000 to the South Coast SCAQMD for a research grant by the US EPA to educate California communities in the use and operation of low-cost air quality sensors. So basically our proposal have 4 specific aims. Aim number 1 is about developing educational material for communities. 2 is about the evaluation of existing low-cost sensor technologies to be deployed throughout California. Aim number 3 is the actual deployment of at least 150 sensors at 6 different communities throughout California. And number 4 is basically communicate to the public the lessons learned through this study and through this project. So this 3-year study is to be conducted in collaboration with 2 co-PIs, UCLA and STI. STI is Sonoma Technology Incorporated. We have worked with them several times, but also with other partners, including CCAEJ and originally CBE. So these are the 2 community groups we wanted to collaborate with when we submitted the proposal to EPA. And in addition, we will also work with other CAPCOA agencies, including the Bay Area AQMD. So basically in November of 2016, the board approved the execution of several contracts to work with the partners that I just mentioned. So we have executed contracts with all of these partners, with the exception of CBE, which basically withdrew from participation. And so what we propose here is to collaborate with Comito Civico de Valle on this project, mostly because they do have extensive experience working with the low-cost sensors. At the moment, they have a sensor network including 40 PM low-cost sensors throughout the Imperial Valley. And they also are running a fairly large sensor network that is called Ivan Air. And also we had, previous communication with them, a few phone calls, and they are very, very excited about this particular project. And I would consider them as the ideal candidate to basically replace CBE on this project. So staff recommend to execute a contract with the CCV to help recruit 3 different communities in Southern and Central California, and also to identify individual citizen scientists that are willing to operate air quality sensors in Southern and Central California over the duration of this study. And the contract basically is in an amount not to exceed $82,500 from Science and Technology Advancement. And with this, I would take any questions.
Judy?
Just a clarification, because you say recruit 3 communities and then you list Imperial, Fresno, and Kern counties. Are those the communities or what? Because isn't this going to happen in Southern California? It's not going to happen in San Joaquin or what?
In our proposal, basically this is throughout California. In our proposal, we basically we want to deploy sensors in Southern California, Central California, and Northern California. So it's a kind of a very ambitious project, and we want to build this kind of statewide low-cost sensor network.
Okay, and then what do the sensors detect?
Yeah, that's a very good question. So when we meet for the first time with each community, we will try to identify their specific needs. So for example, in Imperial County, we know that PM 2.5 is a very big problem. So I would assume that in that case, they would be interested in deploying PM 2.5 sensors. But for other, let's say, Southern California community, maybe located closer to the port or refineries, it is possible that we will deploy VOC sensors or NO2 sensors or even PM 2.5 sensors. That's to be decided.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Other questions?
Sure. Ivan Air, where is that network?
So they do have a website, and I think that vast majority of the sensors that report data into Ivan Air are located in Imperial County.
Can I go back to Judy's question? I'm sorry, I wasn't here in November 2016. The investment in terms of our contracting, South Coast, does that impact communities then only in our area?
You may want to describe
Sure.
the nature of a STAR grant.
Okay.
And the uniqueness in which this grant is with regards throughout the state.
Sure. So a STAR grant, STAR stands for Science to Achieve Results, and actually is a very prestigious grant that usually is awarded to university and other research organizations. So just to give you, a little more background, when we applied back in 2014 actually, so there were about 100 applicants and only 6 awards. And the South Coast SCAQMD was the only governmental agency, as far as we know, in the history of this particular grant, it was awarded one of these star grants. So the nature is purely.
And we did it in partnership though. I think that was
Yeah.
one of the things that made it unique, right?
Yeah, we did it in partnership with basically other CAPCOA agencies. So we basically, before establishing the goal and objectives of the particular proposal, we consulted with the Bay Area QMD and other agencies that are part of CAPCOA. So it's a very kind of it's very large and wide in scope, and that's why we would like to work with communities throughout California, not just in Southern California, because.
But it would include some of our,
Oh yeah, at
Yes.
least 2 or more.
and what is the connection then between these communities participating in the collection of data or overseeing these sensors and the generating the kinds of reports that we use then to deal with a particular area or issue?
Go ahead.
So,
That's a great question.
very good question. So, the main component of this proposal is to develop educational material for communities. One of the problems that we have seen is that now you can find low-cost air quality sensors on Amazon, on specialized websites. So you can buy, let's say, a PM2.5 sensors. You can turn it on, and the sensors, especially when it comes to PM2.5, they're fairly accurate. But then if you
Says,
collect,
yep, your air's dirty, all right.
exactly. But if you use it,
Thank you.
if you use it correctly, there's no problem. But if you deploy it like 5 feet from your diesel truck, then it's a big problem. So what we would like to do is to educate these, citizen scientists in how to operate these sensors correctly, so that they can, collect meaningful data. And we also would like to give them some direction on how to interpret the data in the context of, the air quality in Southern California.
Who would be interpreting it though? I'm just trying to see the connection and understand. I'm really interested in whether there's a lot of construction, let's say, going on my street, for instance. And I'd like to know how quickly will I die from, everything that's being generated, so I have a sensor. But then what? It's kind of like, do I report it?
Yeah, that's part of the project, is because, there are concerns, as you were saying, that you can see a spike over you can take data at a 1 hertz frequency, and every second it takes some data. And if someone sees a spike over a period of maybe 5 seconds, we want to educate them that you really probably want to average that over an hour and then compare it to some standards, as opposed to, freaking out about
Right,
one
but am I
spike.
then reporting it to somebody?
So-
I don't mean just a spike, I mean, I'm collecting data, right?
So actually, what you're describing does happen. And the
Mhm.
challenge that we have is
People
that,
buy it on Amazon, they've checked the air, and now they want somebody to do something about it.
and why aren't you doing something? Because there's clearly a spike and something's wrong.
Right.
And so the difficulty is trying to understand, okay, was in fact that device calibrated? And just because you're seeing a spike over a 5-second period, that really doesn't tell you when you have to look at the overall averaging with
So
regards to
the issue
power
wasn't really
and-
creating citizen scientists, but educating
Yes.
those who are already doing this.
Or interested to do a better job at informing the community.
But is there a collective sort of aspect to it that helps our data collection?
Yes and no.
I would say
Okay, I'll do one at a
yes.
time.
Well, I'll say yes because it's adding granularity.
Mhm.
But the challenge is that increasing that resolution is a good thing, but you still have to look at the overall established federal monitors. and how it relates to it. And so it's that educational component that I think is the biggest challenge that we have and is one of the main objectives of the STAR grant, is getting people to understand all of that, because there is so much data right now that's being collected, whether it's by Google, whether it's by Apple or others. And when it's just put into the hands of people that don't really have an understanding of how that impacts their health, whether it's short-term, long-term. But what we think is that you can see trends, and if you're looking at, for instance, placement near refineries for VOCs, it can alert us, and then we can use different technology. So there's different applications based on the type of sensor and the frequency and the duration, but it's trying to get to that common understanding, I think, is really what this grant is about. And
Well, I'm
raising
interested because it
awareness.
impacts, I think, each of our jurisdictions in a way, because somebody, they're reading in the Times that, oh, we've done a lot of new environmental things in LA County, for instance. And they think, okay, I'm collecting this data, I'm gonna call 211 or whatever and tell them something's wrong. So we're gonna start hearing, I guess, the more people collecting this data. And so it'd be good for us to understand whether there's going to be a sort of a collection point, a reporting point. We would always assume that it would be here. And I'm assuming that, that might be the place, but we might need some more communication ourselves as this rolls out,
Yeah.
more broadly, because it would be kind of more organized
Yep.
in a way.
And one of the uniqueness of this program is that all of the participants, they're basically going to be connected within the network, right? If you have a sensor and that you're reporting PM 2.5 in your backyard, right? You can go online on the website that we have yet to build, and basically you can see the PM 2.5 data from all of the other participants, right? So if it is, if you're reading something, I don't know, high PM 2.5 concentration in your backyard, and everybody else within, I don't know, 10 miles ratio are reading the same, then maybe it's a regional problem. If you're the only one reading high PM 2.5, maybe it's just localized in your area. Or maybe barbecue, whatever it might be.
Like Wikipedia for pollution. That's gonna be an interesting network.
Definitely, yeah.
And I think good for us to know about. I mean, one of the reasons I'm assuming that the setup for South Coast is the way it is that each person, on the board kind of is a part of a community or jurisdiction that's different from the other, more or less, even though some overlap. And I think it'd be good for us to understand, is this just try to make sure your data's good, or try to make sure your data's better and it's going somewhere? Because I think that's what we're gonna wanna know.
And I assume there's parallel tracks that we're working on there to address that exact issue. And in the goals for the year, I know one of them is, I think, 75% of sensors out there to have some sort of rating on or something like that. Is that
And that would be
low
part
cost
of
sensors?
the AQ spec.
Yeah.
Which is also so important when you look at the integration into the overall networks.
Yeah.
I was gonna say, you can look at what CCAJ has done in Imperial with that network, because they actually came to us several months ago.
Correct.
You might want to talk about the technical assistance that we provided.
So they do have right now about 40, maybe more. They're called DILOs, and they're actually manufactured here in Riverside. And they can measure PM 1, 2.5, and 10. They're actually fairly reliable. Each one of these devices costs $400. So anyway, they're working in collaboration with University of Washington to expand in the current network that, again, includes 40 of these DILOs. And I believe in the IVAN network that report all of these, DILOs data in real time, they also have, options. That, for example, if you think that, the person that is managing the IVAN network program needs to be informed that potentially there's an emergency situation and something that should be reported, there is an option there to basically communicate your concerns to the IVAN network. So if you suspect that there is a potential source of PM 2.5 somewhere, you can report your observation, and that's basically recorded and listed in IVAN. So it's a monitoring network plus emergency type of system.
I wonder if over the next decade there might be okay, this is a little Star Wars, so forgive me, but any opportunity for an app?
Oh,
They even have.
Because I'm thinking, it's changed reporting so much that you can do video on your phone or take pictures. And now, almost everything you see on the news every night is some person who was there. And if people are more and more interested in doing this, it seems to me, the mobile collection device in your phone, I mean, there isn't one yet, but, and it would be, again, very difficult to make certain that it's accurate, et cetera. But I can see this would not be too far-fetched over the next maybe 10 years. And it could be a very interesting change in the way we operate, because you would have millions of citizen collectors. I don't know, I think this is very exciting as a kind of a first step, because I think it will also help the technology develop. It already has developed into low-cost sensors, which was not available not very long ago.
The applications I see are just endless, obviously. So over the next decade, I think it's going to change dramatically. And it's not just the industrial impacts from I think about each one of our personal behaviors as well. So like as an example, a demonstration project of a gas-powered lawnmower versus an electric lawnmower, right? And here's your backyard, right? And this is why we're trying to convince you that you should stop using that gas-powered lawnmower, so, and that's an individual choice, but now they get to see the actual impact in their backyard, even though it's just the spike for the,
I have
10
an alarm on my
minutes or
phone
whatever.
going off saying that I've got elevated PM. I turn on that gas.
Yeah, so, and so, I mean, there's that personal behavior part on top of the corporation down the street that you have some frustrations with, so, it's
Very quick
Very
comment
fascinating.
about your comment, which is excellent. There's been a study in the Netherlands where actually they developed this $4 device that you put, you basically cover the camera on your iPhone and you take a picture of the sky. So basically, it gives you an idea of how much PM you have in the atmosphere. It's very inaccurate, but they conducted this experiment throughout the entire country. So over like a 2-week period, they took thousands and thousands of pictures, and they were able to map the spatial distribution of PM 2.5. It's very inaccurate, but they were able to tell that basically on the north part of the Netherlands, PM concentration is high, and they compare basically their results to those obtained with a satellite, and actually they got better spatial resolution using, So I think it's coming, and it's less than 10 years.
When you say it's very inaccurate, you mean it's not terribly accurate as to the individual measurement by photo?
Correct.
But you certainly can see in the aggregate
Absolutely.
that there's a difference here. Yeah, I think, we could even do a reverse pitch for something like that. I mean, they're doing reverse pitches now where the agencies, and I'm trying to encourage everybody to do it, think up something really wild that they'd like to see exist and they don't have it, and really call together a number of, whether they're app designers or, whatever. We're doing it in Silicon Beach about every other week now. I have this wild idea of an app, and they all go, I'll work on it, but it's all on spec on their part. I mean, you don't have to even invest, and then people come and pitch back to you in a month or two or whatever. It's just an interesting way to say, not just sit there and wait for people to bring you ideas, but rather to say, here's something we think we might need, and we don't find it anywhere yet. There's just a lot of creative energy, in Southern California especially, I think. Anyway, just a little off topic, but this is a technology committee, and therefore we can be a little wild-eyed at times. I mean, things have happened, and they're real already, that were sort of unthinkable a decade ago, so. Any other comments or questions on item 3?
I'll move the item.
Adam's been
Second.
moved and seconded. Any objection to a unanimous vote by the committee in approval? All right. That's our agenda. Do we have any public testimony? Anyone wishes to present to the committee? All right, seeing none, we are adjourned.